Hi, I'm Amelia Rose, a learning specialist here at TIE, and welcome to today's Tech Tuesday. Today we're going to be looking at Gooru, and Gooru is an online platform to help you personalize student learning. And so I'm just going to show you my screen while we're working today, and I'll just walk you through some different ways of how and why you would use Gooru. So let me just get to my screen here. Okay, so the first thing that when you code to Gooru is that you're going to be using Gooru for things like what they say is to empower students by personalizing his or her learning. And so you can create different paths for different students. And you don't have to create all of your materials yourself because there's already lessons or activities put together in collections. And so the first thing you'll have to do is you'll sign up for a free account, and they're dedicated to making this free forever, is what they say. So once you've created an account, your profile will show up right here. And then these links up here, you have the libraries, your content, and your classes up here. So under libraries, if you notice, there's a community library, district libraries, and partner libraries. What Gooru did is just this past year, they partnered with some schools in California and co-created some of the collections and learning activities with the school districts. So you'll see those, but you're able to access any of those also. The same with some of their partners here. You can see some of the activities that have been partnered, they've partnered to create. I usually just go to community library up here. And so today what I think we'll do is, well, first I'll show you the library and how to do some searches. And then I'll show you how to put that into a course for your students, and then how to assign your students that course, where you can monitor the progress that they've made, or also do assessments and see how they're coming along on the material. So if you click on community libraries, you can do a search right up here by a topic, or you can choose down here from a specific area. So if I were going to do, let's say, math, 4th grade math, I'd click down here. And then what I'm going to see is all these different collections. Now in a collections, there's several resources. So you see this one's on place value, and this ordinal numbers. And in this collection on ordinal numbers, there are 4 resources in the collection. And a resource could be a video you find online, a game, maybe even some questions, some kind of like formative or summative assessment that you want to put in there. And so we'll do some exploring with that. And like underneath the ordinal numbers, there's one on counting numbers, measuring numbers. Looks like all these are having about 4 resources in the collections, and labeling numbers. Now let's say I wanted to do something. In my mind, I know that I have a unit coming up on fractions for 4th grade, so I'm going to click down here on fractions and decimals. And now I can see all these different ones that are available. There's topics, and then a lesson, and then the collection is underneath the election. So there's like part of a whole, part of a group, underrepresenting fractions, equivalent fractions, and simplest forms. So what I can do is I can look through the collection to see if it's something I want, and I can just preview it by clicking on it and kind of look to see what's in it. So on here it looks like, so this is the first resource that they've added. And so the picture here is the person who created it or put it has kind of owned this one. Maybe she took one that was already on Gooru and made it her own and republished it to share with others. Or maybe she created the whole thing. But this first box kind of gives a narrative to students of what they'll do in the activity. So this one says, use the next arrow to work through this information on fractions as part of a whole. And then the students would read through this, and it looks like, okay, tells what the fraction is. Click through the slideshow. Say that you take one of the 8 slices. You can say that you took 1/8 of the pizza. Oh, so I like that visual representation of it. That's cool. Okay, so I do like that resource. Let's see what the next resource is. Let's see how much you learned from the past, that presentation. Read the directions and click start to play the game. Oh, so right away they get to play a game. So they had to read something, learn a little bit, but now they get to apply it in the game. So that's kind of a neat idea. Let's see what the third resource is, a video. Okay. Play. An error occurred. Please try again later. And I actually did preview this one earlier and I got the same message. So I really like those first 2 resources, but obviously I wouldn't want to give it in this format to my students because this one, the link is broken or there's something down on that site. Let me see what this 4th resource is like. Click start for one last review and some practice problems. Good luck. Oh, so then it's another game that they can play to help with that. So I really like this as a nice introduction that I could have some students maybe working on this while I worked with another small group. So I really like this collection, but you know, that 3rd one, I'll have to do something with that 3rd one. Now, as you see, this is what happens even when a student goes through one of these collections. It will tell them how much time they spent on it, and you can see the breakdown of how much time they spent on each one. Now, if there had been questions in here, you would click on the questions and it would let you know how the students scored on there, or if there's open-ended questions, it would go there, but this collection didn't have any questions. And then they can either print that report out or download and email that report to the teacher if they weren't assigned to this class. So if I click the X up here on the green, I'm done with previewing it. So because I kind of did like that one as an intro, I want that to become part of my saved collections. And so that would come up here where it says my content. And how I get it there is I just click remix. It says this collection could use a bit of your signature touch. Click here to make your own customizable copy. So now it goes right up here. I can put it right into a course, but I haven't created a course yet. So I'm going to click My Collections, and I'm just going to add it to My Collections. And what they say that's kind of like your sandbox, you know, like where you can kind of play around, mess around with the resources that you're using until you get them the way you want them, and then you could drop them into a course. So I can go to my content, my collections up here, or since I just added this one, if I want to work on it right away, I can click and have it take me right there. So Part of a Whole was the name of that one, and so it pops right up here with the 4 resources that we just looked through. And if you remember right, that 3rd one, the video, didn't work, and so I did not want that to be part of what I would give my students. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to edit that by just removing that one since it didn't work. So now I'm down to 3 resources. But I was exploring some online and I found on LearnZillion, which I love because you can look up ELA and math, Common Core standards, and find great lessons to do with your whole class, or like in this case, I'm going to just do it with a small group of students. But there was one on recognizing equivalent fractions, and it just really goes through and talks about fractions again, and it's just a video. So I'm going to actually copy this address, and then when I go back over to Gooru, I'm going to add it as a resource. So I'm going to add resource, and here I can paste in that LearnZillion address. And I'm just going to write fractions after that. You can write a description if you want, and then what kind of format it's in. If I want a picture, like if I took a snippet of the LearnZillion site, I could upload that here or keep it blank, which I'm going to do just for now. And then you have to scroll down to click Add. And so what it does, it actually takes students out to that LearnZillion site within Gooru. So they won't be just floundering online. It will take them directly to that. And so it always, when you add a resource, it shows up as the last resource. And here's that LearnZillion. But when I went through that video, I felt like it was a really good introduction. So I liked their first introduction, but I think they might need a little bit more reinforcement, the group of kids I'm thinking of, before they start playing a game. So I really want this to be in the second position. I could click up and then it would move up one at a time, or I can just change the number to the position I want and then click the arrow and it will move it up to that position. And so there's my LearnZillion fractions as that second resource in this collection. And now another thing that I might want to do with this is if I really want to see, we didn't add any questions. There weren't any questions here to see if students are understanding what they're learning about. So I might go and add a question here. Now, when I add a question, these are all the different types of questions you can add. If you add an open-ended question, it won't be automatically graded by Gooru, but you will be sent the response if the student is logged in, or else they can print it or download it and email it to you when they finish the collection. And so there's several different choices here of what they can do. But maybe I just want to add, maybe I will just click open-ended and ask, what is your understanding of a fraction? So I can click if I want the standards, I can give hints, have them go back and rewatch. Something could be a hint. So there's lots of different parts you can add. And then when you're done with that, you click Add. And again, the question will automatically show up at the end, which I think is a good place. So after they've done all these things, I want to know, what is your understanding of a fraction? And so then they'll have to type that out to me. And so that I can use as a formative assessment to see if they need some more work with fractions or if they're ready to move on. So now that I have this collection kind of put together the way that I want it, and in my head this whole time I've been thinking about a group of students that I would use it with, I can go ahead and create a course for those students. Now, when I create a course, I can click right here on my courses, or up here. Well, first I'll click here to create the course, and then I'll show you how you can add a class to it. So when you create a course, there's several steps. And I'm going to first show you a course that I've already created so you kind of have an understanding of what it looks like. This one I called Numbers Everywhere. And so that's the name of the course. Under there I have a unit called Place Value. And under that unit, there's a lesson called Uses of Numbers. And then I put two activities in there, numbers less than 1 million and counting numbers. So those are the two collections or activities that are in that lesson. So there's quite a few steps, but the cool thing about that is it gives you time to kind of process through your course and your students when you're making it. So now here I can create a new course by clicking the plus sign. And I have to think about what I might want my course to be called. And I'm just going to call it Fractions. And then it's a math course. And it's grade 4. If I scroll down. And then this is just for your planning purposes. They don't see that, but if I'm thinking about students maybe that need a little bit extra work, in fractions, and that's kind of the group I was thinking of in my head. I'm just going to say students below grade level, or you could say all students too, but that's just to help you with identifying who you're making this for. So now here's my unit name. My unit name under fractions. I'm going to be really original and call it fractions again. Maybe I'll just call it fractions for fun. And here is your big idea. So what are some of the big ideas that I want to get across? And that's parts of a whole. And then here you have a choice, a place to put like some essential questions. And so then down here again, you have some other options. What will it cover? Again, grade 4, and this will be numbers and operations. And now I can create a lesson. I might call that and then again, it's asking what will this lesson cover? And so then I can go through, and here it says extend understanding of fraction equivalence and ordering, build fractions from unit fractions. So just some different things, and you can click right on the standards that you want that are going to be covered in this. And then you can save and view your lesson, or you can create your collection or create an assessment, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But if I create a collection, and so now here I kind of found that the collection I found that collection that I wanted to use in here. And so I can actually, let's see. I can go out to my collections, and there it is, part of a whole. And one of my options over here is that I can copy it or I can move it. And since I'm done, I finalize it here the way I want it, I'm going to move it right into that collection. You might want to copy it if you're thinking this is great for one group of students, but I would take out maybe one of those intro activities that I put in there, maybe that Learn Zillion one, and I'm going to add something a little bit more difficult for a different group of students. So I could have a copy left in this, in my playground or my sandbox, I guess we called it, to work on later. Or if I click move, then I can move it right into my courses. And there's fractions. And I can click add. Oops. And for some reason, it's not, oh, sorry. So what just happened is I clicked on the course, and then my unit opened up underneath it, and I didn't see that. So that's a good note to remind you of also. So once again, you can see that there's something underneath, and there's the lessons parts of a whole. Now that's what will allow me to add that collection. So now parts of a whole is in the lesson, which I named the same thing. And it's all under this course, fractions. So there it is. Now when I expand it, we can see all the different parts of what's in there. So now what else I can do in here is if I go back out and find a different collection on units or on fractions that I think the same would be good for the same group of students, once they're in this course, they can do all the collections that are found in there. So I can continue to add things to that depending on the students and how long I want them to be working in that. And I could create a course even just for one student if I had a student that, was at a different place than other students in my class. I could go ahead and do that. Or if, to start off easy, maybe you're just going to create one course that you want all students to go through. And maybe you don't even have one-to-one at your school. So maybe you're going to set this up like almost like a center, and you're going to work with a third of your students on one activity, a third are going to work independently, and then a third are going to be on the computers going through this. So there's lots of different ways you can use Gooru, even if you're not a one-to-one school. So now that I have this course all set up, my courses, I can now assign some students to that course. So if I go to my classes, and so you can see here 2014-15, those are classes that I created last year. And just in August, last month, they did some updating of their website. So there's some features that have changed on here. But this top part says classes I've joined. And so like right now, just to see how this the new Gooru was working, I signed up for the social justice class just to help me navigate through Gooru and get used to it. So that might be something that you're interested in doing also. And then here's classes I teach. And so these are some that I've been creating as I've been thinking about what would be beneficial for teachers. And so if I look through them, I have a couple for 8th grade. Here's a couple math ones for 4th grade that I've done already. And these have the same, this one's actually 4th numbers everywhere, and then 4th numbers are important. And I know that those are two different kind of levels, but I didn't number them because I didn't want students to think, oh, I'm in number 1 and they're in number 2 or something like that. I just gave them different fun names, but personally, I know that one's at a little bit lower level than the other one. So I'm still thinking about my fraction course that I just created, and I want a class to be assigned to that. So here the class title, and so this is for 4th, and it was a fractions, and I might call it 4th math for fun with math, or but I'm going to actually label this one as fractions because I'm going to keep it more like a unit because I know I'll be moving my students around as they gain an understanding, or as students have trouble or learn in different styles. I might place them in something different for the next unit. So I actually call the class by kind of my unit name. Now it's going to ask me the grade level. So this one's for 4th grade. And then here it says who can view this. So anyone with the link or code. So that means if I give a student the link, like maybe in an email, or the code that he can or she can enter in, they can see it. Otherwise, I can say specific students, and that's only students that you invite can access and join. I usually use this one, but you'll have to notice, just know your students and what would work best for them. So now it says content pacing. So now thinking about this, the course assigned to this class can be edited in my content, the assigned course. So I need to select a course for this class of students. And there's my fractions. And this is kind of like your warning about what happens once you've assigned it. And it's just kind of letting you know that once you give out that code, you don't really want to be making changes like in the collection, because then students, if they've done some of the work or not done some of the work, it could get really confusing. So they're just kind of talking about that. You could definitely add another collection to it without disrupting that piece, as long as you let them know. And so here's just talking about how pacing works. Content pacing applied to assessments in this course. Students must meet the minimum score for all assessments in a lesson to see a trophy on the lesson level. And so it's just talking, how it shows to students when they've met the score they're supposed to meet. Now, if you remember right now, I really only have that one question that was open-ended question. So this isn't going to pertain so much to this, but like if you have several collections in there with questions that are automatically graded, this would be really helpful. And up here you can see that code then that I can give students right underneath that top navigation bar, and then they would have access to the fourth fractions here. And so that's how I've now assigned a class. So if I go back to my classes, we'll see there's that fourth fractions. There are zero students in it. Under my content, when courses is highlighted, we can see fractions. Remember collections? My collections was where it's kind of like the sandbox where I could just drop things I found. So these are all ones I haven't put into a course yet, but I liked some of the resources in them. And so that's kind of just like a holding box. They used to let you make folders in here, but that was one of the features that was changed. And so now they're just individual collections dropped in here, which is kind of a bummer. I really liked that folder. I've already told Gooru that. So again, under my courses, fractions. And remember we found the collection that I use, parts of a whole, under the libraries. You could also just search for fractions right up here in the search bar. Another thing that I did want to make sure I showed you today is that what happens when you've assigned a student a class. So they can, once you're in here, if you want to invite students, you can give them an actual link. Here's a bit.ly, so a short link. They've just shortened up this big link here. Or this is the same class code that I pointed out to you that was underneath your navigation bar. Or remember it said one of your options was only to let students see it that had been personally invited. So right here, you could put their email addresses. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was that you can let any student come in and work on this. They don't have to have an account. They don't have to have an email. As long as you give them this code, they could come in and work. And like I was showing you, let me go back. Get all the way through here to the resources. So when they have finished this and they submit it and they end the course, their options were to print the report or download the report. And so this would be something, and here would be your open-ended questions and how they responded to it, that they could actually have, they could then print it and just hand it in to you. And maybe that's how you're going to track their work. But you could also have students, when they first come into Gooru, I'll go back to the front screen, where I talked about how you can create your own free account as a teacher. There's also an option for them to create a free account as a student. And so if they create a free account, the cool thing is then that's when you get to look up the analytics of your students. And so you can track your students to see where they're at in the collections and to see what their scores were, how they answered questions. But they do have to have an account to be able to see that. So maybe right now at this point you're thinking that seems a little overwhelming. That's fine. You can just give them you can just give them the course link. Oh, whoops. I went in the wrong thing. Fourth fractions, when you invite students, either this, the code or this link, and they can just go right to the link, or if they have an account, they can enter the code right here under My Classes, and I'll take them right to the collection that you created with them in mind to go through. So now I'm going to show you one, this Numbers Everywhere. I actually went in and created a student account under a different email just to show you how that piece works. And so I went in and I finished this under the unit was place value and uses of numbers. And so there's actually two different collections. There's this word form, numbers less than 1 million, and then there's counting numbers. And so I'll show you how this, here are the resources if I actually want to go through it. So there was a video from LearnZillion at the very front of this to talk about how to write numbers. And then there's some practice with it. So it will, on this activity, it gives the number, oops, we push start, I'll give the number, and then they have to find it written out, and it grades it right there. So you would not get this report because it's taking them out to that website, but it's really embedded within Gooru. So actually it's not taking them out, it's pulling that website into Gooru through the link. But that wouldn't be reported to you. So it's just a practice, like a formative assessment for students on their own learning. They can navigate through by clicking like I did up here, or also there's this arrow too that would go on to the next resource. Here under method 1, click 1 to 10,000 for some practice writing some larger numbers in word form. Type your answer in the box and click check. So it tells what to do under here, you know, where to go. So I want you to go to, oops, I think it said to 10,000. I went to the wrong one. But, and here it'll give the number, and then they actually have to type the number and then check it, and it will tell them if it's right or wrong. So again, this would just be a formative check for students. The teacher wouldn't see this unless you happen to be walking behind them, but you wouldn't get a report on that. Once again, another check. And then what I did is, so they got to do just these practice ones that weren't checked by the teacher or the facilitator of the class. But now for 5, 6, and 7, I went in and added a question on each one that's just a multiple choice that would be submitted to me as the teacher, so I know how they did. So how do you write the number using words? Or how do you write this number using words? 107. So they click their answer. So let's say they did this first one, they submit it. Right away, they get immediate feedback if it's right or wrong. And then they can go on to the next resource, the next question. How do you write this number using words? 522. And let's say they got, 512, yeah. If it's wrong, there's an X that comes up next to it, and then they can choose, they get another choice. What was it again? 522. And they can go ahead and submit that. So then there's one last question, 2040. How do you write this number using words? 2040. Okay, 240. Oh, yep. No, not 200. 2000. Okay, 2040, 2400. Let me go back and double check my place values. You know, really thinking how a student might attack this problem. So now when they click end, they're going to see the report, the summary of that collection, and how much time was spent on each activity, which is really nice, especially if you're having them watch a 5-minute video. If you see that they spent 5 seconds on it instead of 5 minutes, you know, that's a point that you might have to step in and have a conversation with them about that. Also, do you notice up here it says second session? That's because I already went through and took this one time, and now I went through it and took it a second time, and I hope to show you the differences with that. So this is just how long I spent on each of those resources. Now, when I click questions, it will tell me what my choices were and that all 3 of them were correct on those. Now, again, open-ended. This one did not have an open-ended question. Once again, I could print this report or download it if I was not signed in, so I could still hand something or give something to my teacher. But if I am signed in, you will also see this, and so that's what I want to show you. So I'm on the student view right now. I can return to the teacher view. And so there's the student, use my same name. And it says only 1 out of 2 because there was, if I go back 1, you'll see how, it's showing up underneath there, but there's 1 more collection that I haven't gone through yet. So that's why I've only gone through 50% of what's available. And so it shows here the total time that was spent on there. And so it's just, when you're looking through the views, if you have a whole class that's assigned, you can look at a class view, a course view. You can look at each individual student. I just clicked on the student, and that was all under my classes. Let's see, something's not. Just going to reload this page quick. And so if I click my classes again, remember that was that numbers everywhere. I just used as an example. I had the student, and then up here, view a student, the dashboard is where you go to see those summary results. Here, all the students that I've assigned would show up if they have a login. So this is only something you can use if they have an account on Gooru. But the great thing is like I said, that you can come in here and kind of mess around with this without being intimidated that right from the start you have to group your students into 5 groups and create 5 different collections of resources for each group. But I would say start small. Go in, look through the library, maybe find 1 or 2 that you could give to your students. Even if they don't have an account yet, you can give them the link and they can work through it, and then just do it step by step. But I think you'll find this as a powerful tool to help with personalizing learning and helping with engagement. And don't be afraid to reach out and send me an email, arose@ty.net, if you have any questions. Thanks for joining us today to learn about Gooru.